Look, I'm only going to say this once, Captain Sarah Chen said, leaning back in her weathered command chair aboard the Solar Envoy. Release Princess Valara of the Centauri Commonwealth, or things are going to get remarkably unpleasant for everyone involved. The Drakari warlord's hologram flickered with an almost theatrical menace as he let out what he probably thought was an intimidating laugh. It sounded more like a malfunctioning garbage disposal to Sarah's ears. You dare threaten the might of the Drakari Imperium? One insignificant human vessel against our entire battle fleet? Warlord Krathos's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. Your species truly is as arrogant as they say. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed. She really hated it when they went with the whole puny human routine. It was Tuesday, and she'd hoped to be home in time for pizza night with her crew. Now she'd have to teach yet another species why antagonizing humanity was generally considered a poor life choice in this arm of the galaxy. Computer, please tell our friend here exactly what kind of ship he's dealing with, she said, trying to keep the smirk out of her voice. Trying and failing spectacularly, the Solar Envoy's AI chittered to life with perhaps a bit too much enthusiasm. Certainly, Captain. The Solar Envoy is a Mark VII diplomatic intervention vessel, currently serving as humanity's primary negotiator in the Centauri sector. Our standard loadout includes 37 different types of weaponry specifically designed to incapacitate rather than destroy, 16 varieties of electronic warfare suites, and what our engineering team likes to call the party package, a collection of particularly creative solutions to particularly stubborn problems. Krathos's hologram wavered slightly. Impossible. Our scans show you as nothing more than a civilian transport. Yes, well, Sarah drawled, examining her nails with feigned disinterest. That would be because your scanning technology is about as sophisticated as 2 tin cans connected by string. No offense intended, of course. I'm sure it's very impressive in your part of space. The bridge crew tried, and largely failed, to suppress their snickers. Lieutenant Rodriguez actually had to pretend to have a coughing fit to cover his laughter. You have exactly 30 minutes to release the princess, Sarah continued, her voice dropping several degrees in temperature. After that, I'm afraid we'll have to demonstrate why humanity's diplomatic vessels come with such an interesting arsenal. Your threats are meaningless, Krathos roared, though Sarah noticed his secondary mandibles were twitching, a sure sign of nervousness in his species. We have an entire battle fleet. Yes, you mentioned that, Sarah said, waving her hand dismissively. Very impressive, much scary, many guns. Tell me, though, has anyone ever explained to you why humans are classified as a Class 5 diplomatic species? The warlord's silence was answer enough. No? Well then, let me enlighten you. You see, most species developed weapons of mass destruction right around the time they achieved faster-than-light travel. Perfectly normal progression. Break the light barrier, figure out how to blow up planets. Standard stuff, really. Sarah leaned forward in her chair, her smile now distinctly predatory. Humanity. We figured out how to split the atom before we had reliable air travel. We were designing planet crackers while most of our population still thought the internet was some kind of fancy fad. By the time we reached the stars, we had developed so many creative ways to break things that the Galactic Council had to create an entirely new classification just for us. She paused for effect, enjoying the way Krathos's mandibles were now clicking rapidly in distress. But here's the really interesting part. We then took all that devastating knowledge and figured out how to use it for precision work. Why destroy a whole ship when you can just selectively disable exactly the systems you want? You're bluffing, Krathos managed, though his voice had lost most of its bluster. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. 25 minutes remaining. Oh, and you might want to have someone check on your primary reactor's containment field. It would be absolutely terrible if something were to happen to it. Right on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the Drakari flagship. Krathos's hologram whirled around as subordinates rushed to report the mysterious cascade of system failures that had somehow bypassed all their security. When did you... Oh, that? Sarah examined her nails again. That was just to demonstrate that we've been inside your system since about 30 seconds after you dropped out of hyperspace. The quantum encryption you're using? Humanity cracked that particular code about 70 years ago. We actually use it to secure children's gaming consoles now. It's very cute that you're still relying on it for military applications. The warlord's face had taken on the distinct greenish tinge that his species displayed when experiencing extreme stress. This is an act of war. No, Sarah corrected impatiently, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. An act of war would be kidnapping a member of the Centauri royal family. What we're doing is called aggressive negotiation. There's a very important diplomatic distinction there, which I'd be happy to explain in detail. We have... She checked her watch. 22 minutes remaining, and I do so love a good lecture on the finer points of interstellar law. A junior officer rushed up to Krathos, chittering frantically in their native language. Sarah's universal translator picked up fragments about weapon systems spontaneously powering down, and navigation computers reciting what appeared to be human nursery rhymes. Having some technical difficulties? Sarah asked innocently. That must be so frustrating. You know what might help? Releasing Princess Valara and apologizing profusely for this unfortunate misunderstanding. You cannot possibly have this level of control over our systems, Krathos protested, though his voice had risen several octaves. Our cyber defenses are state-of-the-art. Sarah actually laughed at that. Oh, my sweet summer child. Do you know what humanity's favorite hobby has been for the past few centuries? Finding ways to make technology do things it absolutely should not be able to do. There are teenagers on Earth who could crack your systems using nothing but a modified coffee maker and sheer spite. We had to literally create new laws of physics to explain some of the glitches our hackers discovered. She gestured to her communications officer, who had been quietly humming what sounded suspiciously like, "Another one bites the dust," while working their console. Should we show them what happens when we actually start trying? The officer's fingers danced across their console with barely contained glee. Suddenly, every screen on the Drakari bridge began playing what appeared to be cat videos. Very cute cat videos, but probably not what one wanted to see on their tactical displays during a standoff. 15 minutes, Sarah announced cheerfully. Also, I feel like I should mention that your life support systems are currently being maintained through what I can only describe as the digital equivalent of interpretive dance. It would be a shame if someone were to critique the choreography. The bridge of the Drakari flagship had descended into chaos. Officers were frantically trying to regain control of their systems, only to find that their command codes had been replaced with quotes from human philosophical texts. One particularly frustrated technician was attempting to restart their weapons array, only to have the computer respond by asking them to solve increasingly complex riddles. This is impossible! Krathos was practically vibrating with a mixture of rage and fear. No species could have this level of technological superiority without the rest of the galaxy knowing about it? Sarah finished for him. Oh, honey, we know exactly how scary we can be. That's why we work so hard to be nice. Do you have any idea how much effort it takes to maintain our reputation as the galaxy's friendly neighborhood diplomats? The paperwork alone is astronomical. She stood up, straightening her uniform with precise movements. But sometimes, just sometimes, someone does something particularly stupid. Like, say, kidnapping a princess we're rather fond of, and we get to remind everyone why you don't mess with the species that invented 47 different ways to split reality itself before they figured out how to make a decent cup of coffee. 10 minutes, she added, almost as an afterthought. Though, between you and me, your engines have about 7 minutes before they start expressing themselves through interpretive dance. I hear they're quite fond of Swan Lake. The warlord's secondary heart had visibly started pulsing, a sign of extreme distress in his species. You planned this, all of it. Well, of course we did, Sarah replied, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. We're humanity. We plan for everything. Do you know we have detailed protocols for first contact with silicon-based life forms that communicate exclusively through interpretive dance? We've never met any, mind you, but we have a plan for it. Several plans, actually, including one that involves competitive baking. She walked closer to the hologram, her expression softening slightly. But here's the thing. All our plans have two versions. The nice version, and the version we use when someone forces us to stop being nice. Right now we're barely into the first phase of the not nice version. Would you like to see phase 2? I'll warn you, it involves your entire fleet's computer systems developing existential crises simultaneously. It's quite psychological, really. Krathos's mandibles had stopped moving entirely, a sign of complete defeat in his species. The princess will be released immediately, he managed to croak out. Wonderful. Sarah's demeanor changed instantly, becoming warm and friendly. See? Diplomacy works. Now, about those reparations. Reparations? The warlord looked like he might faint. Oh yes, standard diplomatic procedure, I'm afraid. Don't worry, we'll be very reasonable. We'll only demand... She pretended to consult a data pad. Ah yes, the complete surrender of your fleet, the resignation of your entire military command structure, and your personal appearance before the Centauri Commonwealth to apologize. Oh, and you'll have to take a 6-week course on interstellar diplomatic protocols. The homework is quite demanding, I hear. The warlord opened his mouth to protest, then closed it as every screen in his ship simultaneously displayed a countdown clock.
5 minutes, Sarah reminded him cheerfully.
Just think of it this way. You're about to become a wonderful example of why the galaxy has very specific rules about antagonizing humans. Your sacrifice in the name of education will be appreciated by future generations of would-be conquerors.
We surrender,
Krathos whispered, his proud posture completely deflated.
Completely and unconditionally. Excellent choice, Sarah beamed at him. See, diplomacy isn't so hard once you get the hang of it. Now please prepare your ship for boarding. Our diplomatic team will be over shortly to begin processing the paperwork. I do hope you're comfortable with signing things in triplicate. As the hologram flickered out, Lieutenant Rodriguez turned to his captain.
Ma'am, did we actually hack their systems that thoroughly? Sarah's grin turned positively mischievous.
Oh, hell no. We barely got past their outer firewall. But they didn't know that, did they? Sometimes the best weapon humanity has is our reputation for being absolutely insane with our technological applications. The cat videos were a nice touch, though. Good work on that one.
But what if they had called our bluff? Then we would have done it the old-fashioned way.
Sarah shrugged, settling back into her command chair.
You know, actually hacking their systems, disabling their ships, the whole song and dance, would have taken at least an hour and completely ruined pizza night. This way was much more efficient. She checked her watch and smiled. Speaking of which, we should be done here in time for the pizza place's early bird special. I'm thinking Hawaiian tonight.
You truly are evil, Captain. Rodriguez laughed. As the solar envoy prepared to dock with the Drakari flagship, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Just another Tuesday in the diplomatic corps, really. Though she did make a mental note to update the official report with a special commendation for whoever had thought to include cat videos in the standard diplomatic response package. Some weapons, after all, were truly universal. Sarah was halfway through her second slice of Hawaiian pizza when her communication officer cleared their throat meaningfully.
Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission from Centauri High Command.
Of course we are, Sarah sighed, carefully setting down her pizza. Because heaven forbid we get through one meal without an interstellar crisis. Put them through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the elegantly appointed chamber of the Centauri High Council. Princess Valara stood at the center, her crystalline features catching the light in ways that made her look both ethereal and slightly intimidating, which Sarah mused was probably intentional. Captain Chen. The princess's melodic voice carried a hint of amusement. I understand I have you to thank for my rather expeditious rescue. Just doing my job, Your Highness, Sarah replied, trying to discreetly wipe pizza grease off her fingers. Though I have to admit this particular diplomatic intervention was more entertaining than most. Yes, about that. The princess's expression shifted to something between concern and fascination. The Drakari warlord seems to be under the impression that humanity has developed technology capable of making starships perform ballet. Sarah managed to keep a straight face, though she heard Lieutenant Rodriguez choking on his drink behind her. I can neither confirm nor deny any allegations regarding the terpsichorean capabilities of our technology, Your Highness. I see. The princess's crystalline features sparkled in what Sarah recognized as the Centauri equivalent of barely suppressed laughter. And I suppose you also can't comment on reports that their entire command staff is now convinced humans can reprogram reality itself?
Well, that's just ridiculous, Sarah said solemnly.
We can't reprogram reality. She paused for effect. We just strongly suggest that it consider alternative interpretations of its fundamental parameters. The princess actually laughed at that, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. You know, when the Commonwealth first made contact with humanity, many of our advisors warned that your species was too unpredictable to be trusted with significant diplomatic responsibilities.
Really?
Sarah raised an eyebrow. I can't imagine why. We're perfectly reasonable people who just happen to have contingency plans for negotiating with time-traveling sentient pasta. Do you actually have such plans? Your Highness, we have plans for negotiating with time-traveling sentient pasta, who are also going through a teenage rebellion phase and will only communicate through passive-aggressive sticky notes. We take our diplomatic preparations very seriously. The princess shook her head, crystal facets catching the light. And this is precisely why you've become our most valued allies.
No other species would even think to prepare for such eventualities, let alone develop successful strategies for handling them. Speaking of successful strategies, Sarah said, glancing meaningfully at her cooling pizza. I don't suppose there's an actual diplomatic crisis requiring my immediate attention, because if not, I'd really like to finish my dinner before it reaches room temperature. Again. Actually, the princess's expression turned slightly more serious. There is one small matter. The Drakari warlord is insisting that the diplomatic course you sentenced him to is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. Sarah snorted. All he has to do is attend classes and pass a few tests. How is that cruel and unusual? Apparently he's particularly distressed about something called group projects? Ah, Sarah nodded sagely. Yes, well, we had to include some actual punishment in there somewhere. We are running a diplomatic corps, not a holiday resort. He's also quite concerned about the required reading list. It's just the collected minutes from the Galactic Council's subcommittee on standardizing paperwork procedures, Sarah protested, with some light additional reading on the history of interstellar bureaucratic development. All 17,000 volumes? We did provide helpful study guides, Sarah pointed out, and we're only requiring detailed essays on the first 1,000 volumes. The rest is just recommended reading. The princess's crystalline features arranged themselves into what Sarah recognized as the Centauri equivalent of a smirk. You know, I'm beginning to understand why so many species find humans simultaneously terrifying and fascinating. We do try to maintain a healthy balance, Sarah agreed. It keeps the galaxy interesting. Indeed. Well, I won't keep you from your... The princess paused, peering at the pizza with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Traditional post-victory sustenance ritual any longer. Though I do have one final question. Yes? The cat videos. Were those really necessary? Sarah grinned. Your Highness, in all of human history, there has never been a situation that wasn't improved by cat videos. It's practically the first rule of human diplomacy. I thought the first rule of human diplomacy was, don't make the humans stop being nice. That's actually rule 0. We had to add it after the Proxima incident. You know, the one with the tap-dancing vegetables? The princess's features rearranged themselves into what Sarah recognized as the Centauri equivalent of a wince. Ah yes, we don't talk about that one. Probably for the best, Sarah agreed. The therapy bills alone nearly bankrupted 3 star systems. Very well, Captain. I'll let you return to your meal. The Commonwealth extends its deepest gratitude for your assistance in this matter. Always happy to help, Your Highness. Though, if you could possibly avoid getting kidnapped again for at least a few weeks, I'd appreciate it. We're running low on creative ways to traumatize would-be conquerors. The princess's laugh chimed through the comm system one last time before the transmission ended. Sarah turned back to her pizza, only to find it had already gone cold. Lieutenant Rodriguez, she sighed, please make a note in the ship's log. Next time we have to rescue royalty, we're doing it after dinner. Noted, Captain. Though technically it is after dinner, just after yesterday's dinner. You know what I mean? Sarah poked at her cold pizza mournfully. Also add a commendation for whoever added the Swan Lake subroutine to our diplomatic package. Even if we didn't actually use it, the threat alone was worth its weight in antimatter. That would be engineering's newest intern, ma'am. Apparently they got bored during their lunch break last week. Sarah shook her head, smiling. God, I love humanity sometimes. What other species would look at a starship's operating system and think, you know what this needs? Ballet. To be fair, ma'am, the same intern also added a subroutine that can make enemy ships perform synchronized swimming. They're very thorough. Promote them, Sarah said immediately. Anyone who can weaponize interpretive dance deserves a bigger budget. As her crew laughed and returned to their now cold dinner, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Sure, being humanity's diplomatic corps was a challenging job, but someone had to do it. And if that someone happened to have an unhealthy appreciation for psychological warfare and a flair for the dramatic, well, that was just another day in human diplomatic relations. Besides, she thought as she finally bit into her cold pizza, there was always tomorrow's dinner to look forward to. Assuming, of course, no one else decided to kidnap any royalty, antagonize humanity, or otherwise disrupt the natural order of the universe. Though if they did, well, they still hadn't used the synchronized swimming subroutine. And Sarah had to admit she was kind of looking forward to seeing how that one played out. The thing about interstellar incidents, Sarah reflected as she reviewed her morning reports, was that they never really ended with the dramatic conclusion. There was always paperwork. So much paperwork. Captain, her XO announced, materializing at her elbow with yet another stack of data pads. The Galactic Council's Department of Diplomatic Incident Documentation and Processing has sent their preliminary assessment of the Drakari situation. Let me guess, Sarah sighed. They're upset about our unorthodox methods again? Actually, the XO's lips twitched. They're requesting a detailed manual on human diplomatic techniques. Apparently, several other species have expressed interest in our unique approach to conflict resolution. Sarah nearly spat out her coffee. They what now? According to this, the XO consulted one of the data pads. And I quote, "The human methodology of combining psychological warfare with interpretive dance represents a fascinating new frontier in diplomatic relations that merits further study." Please tell me you're joking. There's more. The Arcturian Embassy has specifically requested information about our reality reprogramming capabilities for their cultural database. The Rigelian Confederation wants to know if we offer workshops on creative technological applications in diplomatic scenarios. And the Sirius Collective has demanded to know, and again I quote, how the hell humans managed to turn cat videos into a weapon of mass confusion. Sarah buried her face in her hands. So what you're telling me is that instead of getting in trouble for traumatizing a Drakari battle fleet with the threat of synchronized swimming, we're being asked to teach others how to do it? More or less, though the Andromedans are more interested in the ballet aspect. Apparently they've been looking for new ways to spice up their own diplomatic corps. The Andromedans, Sarah said slowly. The species that communicates primarily through crystalline harmonic resonances and considers interpretive mathematical equations to be light entertainment, want us to teach them about incorporating dance into diplomacy? Yes, ma'am. They've offered to trade their complete database of quantum harmonic equations for just the basic course. Sarah leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling of her office. You know, when I joined the diplomatic corps, I thought I'd be preventing wars, negotiating treaties, maybe occasionally rescuing the odd dignitary from politically awkward situations. Nobody mentioned anything about becoming the galaxy's go-to instructor for weaponized performance art. To be fair, ma'am, that's probably because nobody thought it was possible until you did it. I didn't actually do it, Sarah protested. We just made them think we could do it. The most sophisticated thing we actually did was hack their entertainment systems to play cat videos. About that, the XO coughed discreetly. Remember that intern who wrote the Swan Lake subroutine? Sarah narrowed her eyes. What about them? Well, apparently they got bored again during their lunch break yesterday. They're claiming they've actually figured out how to make enemy ships perform synchronized swimming. Something about manipulating gravitational fields and inertial dampeners in rhythmic patterns. For a long moment, Sarah just stared at her XO. Finally, she asked, "Have they tested it?" No, ma'am. They wanted to check with you first, given the potential diplomatic implications of actually having the capabilities we previously only pretended to have. Sarah drummed her fingers on her desk, considering. On one hand, actually developing the ability to make enemy ships perform water ballet was probably crossing several lines of reasonable diplomatic behavior. On the other hand, tell them to proceed with testing, but keep it quiet for now, and see if they can add some musical accompaniment. If we're going to revolutionize interstellar diplomacy through interpretive dance, we might as well do it properly. Yes, ma'am. Any particular musical preferences? Something classical, maybe Tchaikovsky. He seems appropriate for the occasion. Sarah paused, then added, and tell them that if they can figure out how to make ships perform the Nutcracker, there's a promotion in it for them. The XO made a note on their datapad. There's one other thing, Captain. The Centauri Commonwealth has submitted a formal request for a permanent human diplomatic liaison. Specifically, they asked for you. Me? Why? According to their official statement, they appreciate your innovative approach to diplomatic problem-solving and creative interpretation of conventional deterrence strategies. They want me because I threatened to make their enemies' ships dance ballet. That, and apparently Princess Valara was quite impressed by your pizza dinner diplomacy. She's requesting regular cultural exchange sessions to better understand human traditions. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. Please tell me we're not about to turn pizza night into an official diplomatic function. Well, the XO consulted another datapad. The Centauri Cultural Affairs Office has already submitted a request for detailed documentation of traditional human victory celebration sustenance rituals, with particular emphasis on the significance of pineapple as a controversial topping choice. They think Hawaiian pizza is some kind of complex diplomatic statement, don't they? According to their preliminary analysis, the deliberate combination of controversial ingredients represents humanity's unique ability to harmonize seemingly conflicting elements into a coherent whole, thereby symbolizing our diplomatic philosophy. Sarah stared at her XO for a long moment. You know what the worst part is? They're not entirely wrong. We did literally just prevent an interstellar war by combining threats of technological superiority with cat videos and ballet. Humanity in a nutshell, ma'am? Humanity in a nutshell, Sarah agreed. All right. Tell the Commonwealth I accept their offer, but with one condition. Which is? All diplomatic functions must include a pizza budget. If I'm going to be explaining human culture to aliens, I'm doing it over proper Earth cuisine. Even Hawaiian pizza? Especially Hawaiian pizza. If we're going to scandalize the galaxy, we might as well do it thoroughly. Sarah grinned. Besides, can you imagine the diplomatic papers that will be written about the cultural significance of pineapple on pizza as a metaphor for human diplomatic relations? It'll probably earn someone a doctorate in xenoanthropology. Probably several someones, Sarah agreed. And you know what? That might not be the weirdest thing to come out of human diplomatic relations this year. Not if our engineering intern successfully weaponizes the Nutcracker. As if on cue, her computer chimed with a new message. The subject line read, Prototype successful, Swan Lake achieved, working on Nutcracker. Query, how do you feel about Flight of the Bumblebee as a pursuit deterrent? Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Yes. Just another day in human diplomatic relations, where the line between cultural exchange and psychological warfare was about as clearly defined as the proper ingredients for pizza. And somehow it worked. Though she did make a mental note to start categorizing their diplomatic techniques under unconventional deterrence strategies, rather than weaponized performance art. It sounded more professional that way, even if it was essentially the same thing. 3 weeks after the Drakari incident, Sarah found herself facing what might be her greatest diplomatic challenge yet. Explaining human diplomatic methodology to a panel of alien experts without causing an interstellar panic. The conference room aboard the Galactic Council's diplomatic station was packed with representatives from 17 different species, all eagerly awaiting her presentation on Human Diplomatic Innovation, a comprehensive overview of Terran negotiation techniques. Before we begin, Sarah announced, standing at the podium, I want to make it clear that contrary to popular rumor, humanity did not actually develop our diplomatic protocols specifically to confuse other species. That's just a happy coincidence. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the audience. Sarah wasn't entirely sure if they were laughing at the joke, or just worried about what she might make their ships do if they didn't laugh. Now, as requested by the Council, I've prepared a brief overview of standard human diplomatic procedures. She activated her presentation display, showing a flowchart that looked suspiciously like a game of three-dimensional chess crossed with a modern art installation. As you can see, our approach is quite straightforward. An Arcturian representative raised one of their sensory appendages. Captain Chen, with all due respect, that flowchart appears to have a section labeled, When in doubt, add cats. Yes, that's our standard fallback protocol, Sarah confirmed with complete seriousness. You'd be surprised how often it resolves situations that conventional diplomacy can't handle. And the section marked, Deploy Tactical Whimsy? A crucial element of human diplomatic strategy. You see, most species expect diplomatic threats to be serious and formal. They're prepared for shows of force, economic sanctions, or political pressure. What they're not prepared for is the suggestion that their battleships might spontaneously begin performing selections from Earth's classical ballet repertoire. A Rigelian diplomat leaned forward, their crystalline features refracting light in patterns that indicated intense interest. Is it true that human diplomatic vessels carry specialized software designed specifically to make enemy ships dance? Sarah managed to keep a straight face, though it took considerable effort. I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of choreography-based combat protocols. However, I will note that our engineering department has an unusually high number of personnel with backgrounds in performing arts. But why? Asked a Syrian representative, their feathers rustling in confusion. What possible tactical advantage could be gained from such unconventional methods? Consider this, Sarah said, switching to the next slide. which showed a comparative analysis of diplomatic success rates. In the past standard year, human diplomatic missions have achieved a 94% success rate in conflict resolution, without resorting to actual force. The galactic average is 67%. And you attribute this success to cats and dancing? Not entirely. Sometimes we also use pizza. Sarah paused for effect. The key to understanding human diplomatic strategy is realizing that we don't just aim to resolve conflicts. We aim to resolve them in ways so bizarre that no one wants to risk provoking us again. A Centauri diplomat, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. Are you suggesting that human diplomatic success is based on cultivating a reputation for unpredictability? That's part of it, Sarah admitted. But it's more accurate to say we cultivate a reputation for being exactly the right kind of predictably unpredictable. Everyone knows we'll do something unusual. They just can't predict exactly what form that unusualness will take. Like threatening to make battleships perform Swan Lake? Exactly. Though I should note that particular technique is now technically classified under conventional deterrence since we've used it successfully in the field. The room erupted in a mixture of concerned murmuring and fascinated note-taking. Sarah could practically see the diplomatic reports being composed in real time. Humans have officially categorized ballet-based ship manipulation as a conventional diplomatic tool. Moving on to Section 2, Sarah continued, changing slides again. Let's discuss our approach to cultural exchange programs. Contrary to popular belief, pizza night is not mandatory for all diplomatic functions. We're quite flexible about culinary options, though we do maintain a strict policy regarding the proper preparation of coffee. An Andromedan representative raised all three of their primary appendages. We've reviewed the incident reports from the Proxima situation. Is it accurate that human diplomatic protocol includes contingencies for negotiating with sentient vegetables? Ah, Sarah smiled. I'm glad you brought that up. That particular protocol actually falls under our general category of things that shouldn't be possible but we have a plan for anyway. It's one of our larger categories. How large exactly? The last time someone tried to compile a complete list, the quantum computer they were using achieved sentience and requested asylum. Sarah paused. That's now Protocol 7249B, subsection Unexpected Consequences of Cataloging Protocols. The room had gone very quiet. Sarah couldn't tell if it was the impressed kind of quiet or the terrified kind. Possibly both. But perhaps we should move on to something more practical, she suggested. Who would like to learn about our standardized methodology for incorporating memes into diplomatic communications? Every hand, appendage, and sensory organ in the room raised in unison. Sarah smiled. Maybe this wouldn't be so difficult after all. Though she did make a mental note to warn the engineering department that they might be getting some unusual requests soon. Apparently, the Andromedan Diplomatic Corps was very interested in learning more about the tactical applications of the Nutcracker. To be continued. Because let's